The great hall of the Valorian palace was silent as Queen Jiwoo stood before the Galactic Council. Her face was calm, but her eyes showed the weight of many years of worry. She held her daughter's hand, Princess Haina, who was beautiful beyond measure. Her long, dark hair flowed down her back like a river, and her eyes sparkled with intelligence. Everyone in the galaxy knew her name, but they also knew her curse. The council members sat in a circle, representatives from dozens of alien species. There were tall beings with blue skin from the distant ice planets. There were small creatures with 4 arms from the trade worlds. There were beings made of pure light from the energy dimensions. All of them had come to listen to what the Queen had to say. All of them knew why she had called this meeting. "My people," Queen Jiwoo began, her voice strong and clear, "I come before you with a heart full of hope and pain. My daughter, Princess Haina, is the light of our kingdom. She is skilled in diplomacy. She is educated in the ways of science and art. She is kind to all who meet her, but she carries something that makes life very difficult for her." The Queen paused and looked at her daughter. Haina's face was red with embarrassment, but she stood tall beside her mother. "My daughter has the gift of psychic power," the Queen continued. "This is a gift that should bring her honor and strength. But in her case, this gift is wild and dangerous. When her emotions become strong, when she feels fear or anger or deep sadness, her power comes out without warning. It burns those around her. It hurts people she loves. Many have tried to be with her. Many suitors have come from across the galaxy, thinking they were strong enough to handle her gift, but they have all failed." The Queen's voice grew softer, more sad. "Some of these suitors ran away after just one meeting. Some suffered pain from her power. Some tried to control her, to change her. All of them left, and my daughter was left alone. I have watched her sit by her window at night, tears falling down her face, wondering if she would ever find someone who could accept her as she is." The council members began to whisper to each other. Queen Jiwoo raised her hand for silence. "Today, I make an offer to all the beings in this galaxy," she said. "Whoever can marry my daughter and prove they are worthy of her will receive great rewards. They will receive half of the Valorian kingdom's wealth. They will receive a position of honor and power in our government. They will be treated as family, loved and respected for all their days. But more than that, they will have the heart of a princess, the loyalty of a kingdom, and the love of a woman who has suffered much but still believes in goodness." The Queen stepped back and pulled her daughter forward. "This is my offer. Who among you is brave enough to step forward? Who believes they can handle the greatest challenge of all, to love someone who is different, someone who is broken in ways they cannot understand, someone who carries a power that can hurt them? Who is brave enough?" The silence that followed was deafening. The council members looked at each other but said nothing. Days passed and still no one stepped forward. Weeks became months. Months became years. Many suitors did come, from near and far. They came in grand ships and wore expensive clothes. They carried weapons and told stories of their great power. They looked at Princess Haina with hungry eyes, thinking only of the wealth and power they would gain. But none of them lasted long. The first test was always a simple dinner with the princess. She would sit across from them, nervous and hopeful, trying hard to control her power. But the moment they tried to impress her with false stories or showed her disrespect, her emotions would surge. Her psychic gift would flash like lightning. Some of the suitors screamed and ran from the palace. Others had to be carried away by the guards, their minds hurt by her power. News of these failures spread across the galaxy, and soon fewer and fewer suitors came. The queen grew older. Her hair, once dark like the night sky, began to turn white. She spent her days in the throne room, waiting for someone, anyone, to come and help her daughter. Princess Hana stopped hoping. She spent her days reading books about distant lands she would never visit, painting pictures of love she would never have, and writing in her journal about a life she would never live. At night, she would stand on her balcony and look at the stars, wondering if somewhere out there was someone kind enough, brave enough, and foolish enough to love her. Meanwhile, far away from the Valorian kingdom, on a small planet called Earth, a human named Minho was loading boxes onto his trading ship. He was not a prince, not a warrior, not someone important. He was simply a merchant who traveled from planet to planet, buying goods and selling them at different places. His ship was old and made many strange noises. His clothes were worn from years of travel. His hands were rough from hard work. But his heart was good, and his mind was always curious about the galaxy and all the different beings who lived in it. Minho was the kind of person who helped others without expecting anything in return. He would fix someone's broken machine just to be kind. He would share his food with hungry travelers. He would listen to people's stories for hours, even when he had work to do. His friends always told him that he was too soft, too trusting, too kind for a merchant. But Minho just smiled and said that kindness was never wasted. On this particular day, Minho was heading toward the Valorian kingdom. He had heard that there was good profit to be made there, and he wanted to see the famous palace that people talked about. He had no idea that his life was about to change forever. He had no idea that a queen was still waiting, and that a princess was still hoping, and that the galaxy's greatest love story was about to begin. As Minho's ship entered Valorian space, he looked out at the beautiful planet below. It was green and gold, with great cities that sparkled in the light of the sun. He smiled and thought about all the interesting people he might meet. He thought about the stories he would hear and the new friends he would make. He had no way of knowing that he was about to meet someone who would change everything, not just his life, but the life of an entire kingdom, and perhaps the future of humanity itself. Minho's ship landed on the Valorian spaceport with a heavy thud. The landing gear was old and made a grinding noise. He climbed down from the cabin and stretched his back, feeling tired from the long journey. Around him, massive ships were coming and going. There were enormous cargo vessels from the mining planets. There were sleek military ships from the warrior races. There were elegant traders from the wealthy merchant kingdoms. But Minho's small ship looked like nothing compared to them. It looked like a toy sitting among giants. The spaceport was filled with noise and activity. There were beings of every shape and size walking past him. Some had many legs, some had many arms, and some had no legs at all but floated through the air. There were creatures that looked like insects, others that looked like fish, and some that looked like nothing that Minho had ever seen before. The air smelled like a mixture of strange spices, hot metal, and alien chemicals. It was overwhelming and exciting at the same time. Minho made his way through the crowded spaceport toward the trading district. This was where merchants gathered to buy and sell goods. There were shops selling everything imaginable, food from 1,000 worlds, machines that could do impossible things, clothes made from materials that didn't exist on Earth, and jewels that shined with their own light. Minho walked through the streets with wonder in his eyes, looking at everything, admiring the skill of the craftspeople who had made such incredible things. As the sun began to set and turn the sky purple and orange, Minho decided to go to a bar to rest and get some information. The bar was called The Wanderer's Rest, and it was a place where merchants and travelers gathered to drink, eat, and share stories. The walls were decorated with things from 100 different worlds. There were maps of space routes, pictures of legendary traders, and weapons from ancient wars. The air was thick with smoke from some kind of herb that people were smoking, and the noise of conversation and laughter filled the room. Minho sat down at a table and ordered a drink. Nearby, he heard a group of traders talking loudly and laughing. They were from different planets, but they all shared something in common. They had tried to get rich by pursuing the Valorian Queen's offer. They were telling stories about what had happened to them or their friends. "I heard that my cousin tried," said a creature with bright green skin and 3 eyes. "He lasted 1 hour with the princess. 1 hour. Then he came running out of the palace screaming that his mind was on fire. We had to put him in a medical pod for 2 weeks." The others laughed loudly. Another trader, this one shaped like a large insect, clicked his jaws together in what seemed like laughter. "Everyone knows it is impossible," he said. "The princess is too powerful. Her psychic gift is wild and uncontrolled. No one can survive her. The queen must be crazy to think anyone would be foolish enough to try." "The only beings who have not tried are the weak ones," added another trader, a tall woman with blue skin from the ice planets. "The humans from Earth have not sent anyone. They are too weak, too fragile, too simple-minded to even understand what they would be facing. Can you imagine a human trying to handle a Valorian princess's psychic power? It would destroy him in seconds." The others laughed even harder at this. Minho felt his ears get warm. He did not like to hear his own species being laughed at, but he said nothing. He just listened to their stories and drank his drink slowly. As he listened, something strange happened in his heart. He felt a kind of sadness for the princess. He felt sorry that no one was willing to try to help her, that everyone thought it was impossible, that everyone was laughing at her pain. The more he listened, the more he thought about what he had heard. A princess who was alone, who had power she could not control, who just wanted someone to accept her and love her. It was a sad story, the kind of story that touched Minho's heart. Most people would have laughed along with the traders and forgotten about it by morning. But Minho was not like most people. He had spent his whole life traveling and learning about different beings and their struggles. He understood that every being, no matter how different or strange, wanted the same basic things: to be loved, to be accepted, and to have someone who would not run away when times got difficult. When the traders finally left the bar, still laughing about how impossible the whole thing was, Minho sat alone with his thoughts. He thought about the princess. He thought about what it would feel like to have power that hurt people, to have something inside you that you could not control, to push away everyone who came close to you. He thought about the queen, who must be so tired and sad, watching her daughter suffer year after year. And he thought about how no one was willing to even try. That night, Minho could not sleep. He lay in his small hotel room and stared at the ceiling. He kept hearing the words of the traders. He kept imagining the princess standing alone, waiting, hoping. He kept thinking about the queen's desperate offer. And he kept asking himself one question. What if he tried? What if he was foolish enough, kind enough, or brave enough to step forward and try? By morning, Minho had made a decision. He did not know if he would succeed. In fact, he was almost certain he would fail. But he knew that he had to try. He could not live with himself if he did not at least attempt to help someone in such pain. He cleaned himself up, put on his best clothes, and made his way to the royal palace. The palace was even more enormous than he expected. It was made of white stone that seemed to glow with its own light. There were gardens with flowers he had never seen before, each one more beautiful than the last. Guards stood at every entrance, all of them tall and strong, all of them looking at Minho with confusion and doubt as he approached them. "I wish to see the queen," Minho said simply. "I wish to speak with her about her daughter." The guards exchanged looks. One of them, a particularly large guard with 4 arms, actually laughed out loud. "Another foolish suitor," he said. "Does this human not understand what he is walking toward? Does he not know that he will be hurt, humiliated, and sent away like all the others?" Minho did not answer. He simply looked at the guard with kind eyes and waited. There was something about his calmness, about his genuine sincerity, that made even the guards hesitate. Finally, one of them walked away to make a report. 10 minutes later, Minho was told that the Queen would see him. He took a deep breath, stepped forward, and walked into the palace. Behind him, the guards were already placing bets on how long this human would last before running away in fear. The Queen sat in her private chamber when Minho was brought to her. She was a tall woman with dark eyes and white hair that fell past her shoulders. Her face showed the lines of many years of worry and sadness. When she saw Minho enter, she studied him carefully. He was nothing like the other suitors who had come before. He did not wear expensive clothes. He did not carry weapons. He did not have the proud bearing of a warrior or a noble. He was simply a human man, of medium height and build, with kind eyes and a gentle smile. "I am told you wish to see me about my daughter," the Queen said. Her voice was soft but filled with caution. She had heard many promises before, and they had all ended in disappointment. Minho bowed respectfully. "Yes, Your Majesty," he said. "I heard about your daughter and her situation. I know that many have tried and failed. I know that the task seems impossible, but I would like to meet her if you would allow it. I make no promises about success, but I promise you that I will be honest and sincere." The Queen leaned forward. There was something different about this human. He did not speak of his own strength or power. He did not boast or make grand claims. He simply asked for a chance. "Many have asked the same," she said, "but you are different somehow. I do not know why, but something tells me to let you try. You may meet my daughter, but I must warn you. She has been hurt many times before. Do not add to her pain." "I will not," Minho promised. The Queen led him to a large garden where Princess Hai-Na was sitting by a fountain. She was reading a book, and when she heard footsteps, she looked up with eyes that showed little hope. She had been through this many times before. She had learned not to expect anything good to come from these meetings. When she saw Minho, she expected to feel what she always felt, the eager eyes of someone looking at her not as a person, but as a prize to be won. But Minho was different. He did not stare at her beauty. He did not try to impress her with grand words. He simply walked over and sat down on the grass nearby, not too close, giving her space. "Hello," he said simply. "My name is Minho. I am a human from Earth. I came because I heard about you, and I wanted to know more about who you are." Haina did not know what to say. Usually, suitors immediately told her how beautiful she was, or how honored they were to meet her. But this human seemed more interested in her as a person. "You know nothing about me," she said carefully, testing him. "That is true," Minho agreed. "But I would like to know, if you are willing to tell me." For the first time in many years, Princess Haina began to talk to someone about her real life, her real feelings. She told Minho about the loneliness of her gift. She explained how her psychic power was like a fire inside her that could not be put out. When people were mean to her or showed her disrespect, the fire would burn so hot that it would hurt them. But even when people were kind, her emotions would sometimes get too strong, and she would hurt them anyway. She talked about how scared she was that she would never have a normal life, that she would always be alone, that no one could ever truly love her because she was too dangerous. Minho listened without interrupting. He did not try to give her advice or tell her that everything would be okay. He simply listened with compassion in his eyes. When Haina finally stopped talking, she felt tears running down her face. She was ashamed of crying in front of a stranger, but Minho did not make her feel embarrassed. Instead, he reached into his pocket and gave her a cloth to dry her tears. "I am from a small planet called Earth," Minho said. "There, we do not have powers like yours. We are fragile beings, and we get hurt easily. Because of this, we have learned that the most important thing in life is to understand each other. We have learned that everyone is broken in some way, and that is okay. It is okay to be different. It is okay to have power that is hard to control. What matters is that you try your best and that you have people around you who accept you as you are. Hana looked at him with surprise. No one had ever spoken to her like this before. No one had ever made her feel like her condition was not a curse, but simply a part of who she was. As they talked, the afternoon grew late. Minho told her stories about his travels, about the different beings he had met, about the wonders he had seen in the galaxy. Hana found herself smiling, genuinely smiling, for the first time in what felt like forever. She told him about the books she loved, the paintings she had created, the dreams she had given up on. Minho listened to everything with genuine interest, but as the sun began to set and Hana's emotions grew stronger with the memory of all her past pain, her power began to surge. A strange energy started to fill the air around her. Objects nearby began to shake. The water in the fountain started to glow with an eerie light. Hana gasped and tried to pull her power back inside herself. "I am sorry," she cried out. "I cannot control it. You should go now, before I hurt you." But Minho did not move. Instead, he moved closer to her. This was the moment when every other suitor had run away, screaming in fear. This was the moment when her power would burn them, hurt them, destroy them. Hana's eyes grew wide as she watched Minho reach out his hand toward her. "It is okay," he said calmly. "I am not afraid. You will not hurt me. Not because your power is weak, but because I trust you. I believe that you have control over yourself. I believe that you can do this." The moment Minho touched her hand, something unexpected happened. The wild energy that was surging from Hana did not hurt him. Instead, as she felt his hand holding hers, as she felt his presence strong and calm beside her, her power began to calm down. It was like pouring cool water on a burning fire. The energy that had always felt so dangerous and out of control seemed to flow from her into Minho, and instead of burning him, it seemed to ground her, to help her find peace. Hana and Minho sat together in the dark garden, holding hands as the stars came out above them. For the first time in her life, Princess Hana felt safe. And for the first time in his life, Minho understood that sometimes the greatest strength is simply being present with someone and showing them that you do not fear them or judge them. The queen, watching from a distance, felt something shift in her heart. Perhaps, she thought, there might be hope after all. Word of Minho's success spread through the palace like wildfire. A human had done what no other being in the galaxy had done. He had sat with Princess Hana and calmed her power without running away. The guards who had laughed at him outside the gates were now talking about him with respect. The servants of the palace whispered his name with curiosity. Queen Jiwoo felt something she had not felt in many years: hope. But the council of nobles was not so easily convinced. They demanded that Minho undergo a series of tests to prove that he was truly worthy of the princess. They said that one successful meeting was not enough to show that he could handle the responsibility of marrying a princess of the Valorian kingdom. Minho agreed to the tests without complaint. He knew that the council had to be satisfied, and he understood their concern. The first test was physical endurance. Minho was taken to an arena where warriors trained. He was given a suit of armor that was far too heavy for a human body and told to run, climb, and fight against opponents. The other beings in the arena laughed at him. How could a weak human survive in a place where warriors from warrior planets came to prove themselves? But Minho did not give up. He moved slowly but steadily. He did not try to be as strong as the professional warriors, but he showed that he had determination and will. He completed every challenge, even though it took him longer than others. When he finished, his body was covered with sweat, and his muscles burned with pain, but he was still standing. The second test was intellectual. Minho was brought before scholars from many different worlds. They asked him questions about science, mathematics, history, and philosophy. They asked him about trade routes, economics, and governance. Minho answered the questions as best he could, but he knew that he did not have the advanced knowledge of beings who had spent centuries studying. What he did have was wisdom from experience. When he did not know an answer, he was honest about it. When he had an opinion, he explained it clearly and simply. The scholars were impressed not by his knowledge, but by his honesty and the way he could explain complex ideas in ways that anyone could understand. The third test was the most important. The council demanded that Minho undergo a psychic resistance trial. This was something that had been done with all the other suitors, and it was usually where they failed. Minho was brought to a special chamber in the palace. The walls were covered with symbols that channeled psychic energy. In the center of the chamber stood Princess Haina. The queen stood at the side, her face worried. The council members watched from behind thick glass that would protect them if something went wrong. "You must resist my power," the council leader explained to Minho. "The princess will use her psychic gift at full strength. You must remain standing and keep your mind intact. This shows that you can handle her power and that you will not be hurt by her." Minho looked at Haina. She looked scared and sad. He could see that she did not want to hurt him, that she hated being used as a weapon to test others. This was not the first time she had been asked to do this, and he could see in her eyes how much it cost her emotionally. The council leader gave a signal. Haina took a deep breath, and her psychic power began to build. The air in the chamber grew thick and heavy. A strange pressure filled Minho's mind. It was like nothing he had ever experienced. It felt like his brain was being squeezed, like his thoughts were being scattered like leaves in a storm. The pain was intense and growing stronger. Every other suitor had fought this power. They had tried to use their own mental strength to resist it, to push back against it, to overcome it with force. But this approach always made Haina's power grow stronger and more violent. The more they resisted, the more she had to push, until finally they would break or run away. But Minho did something different. Instead of resisting, he let go. He stopped trying to protect his mind. He opened himself up to her power, accepting it, surrendering to it. The council members gasped. This was not the correct response. This would only make things worse. But the opposite happened. As Minho stopped fighting and started accepting Haina's power, something strange occurred in her mind, too. She could feel his acceptance, his trust, his complete faith that she would not hurt him. And in feeling this, she found something she had never found before: control. She realized that her power did not hurt people because she was strong. It hurt people because they fought her, because they rejected her gift, because they treated it as an enemy to be defeated. The moment Haina understood this, her power changed. It stopped being wild and dangerous and became calm and gentle. It flowed from her like a river of light instead of a storm of pain. Minho stood in the center of the chamber, surrounded by her psychic energy, and he was fine. More than fine. He felt peaceful, as if her power was healing rather than hurting. When it was over, Minho dropped to his knees. His body was exhausted from the intensity of the experience. But his mind was clear and strong. He looked up at Haina with love in his eyes. She was crying, but they were tears of happiness and release. For the first time in her life, she understood that her gift did not have to be a curse. It could be something beautiful if the right person stood beside her. The council members were silent. They had not expected this result. Their test had been designed to measure Minho's resistance to Haina's power. But what they had witnessed was something much more important. They had seen two people understand each other in a way that made them both stronger. Queen Jiwoo stepped forward and helped Min-ho to his feet. She looked at her daughter and saw joy in her eyes for the first time in years. She looked at the council members and saw uncertainty in their faces. Finally, she spoke. "My daughter has never controlled her power like that before," the queen said. "Not in her whole life. Today, with this human, she found control. Not through force or resistance, but through trust and acceptance. The council demanded a test of strength, but what they have witnessed is a test of something far more powerful, the strength of genuine human connection and compassion." The council leader stood slowly. "The trial has been completed," he said. "The human has shown that he can survive the princess's power. But more importantly, he has shown that he can change her, help her, make her stronger. This is something no other being has ever done. By the laws of our kingdom, he has earned the right to pursue this path further." Min-ho looked at Hai-na, and she smiled at him through her tears. The long night of testing was over, and a new day was beginning. A day when Princess Hai-na would no longer be alone, and a day when a simple human from Earth would prove that courage and kindness could be stronger than any power in the galaxy. In the weeks following the trial, something remarkable began to happen in the Valorian kingdom. News of Min-ho's success spread not just through the palace, but through the entire empire. Scientists and scholars became very interested in what had happened in that chamber. How had a human, a being with no psychic powers at all, managed to help the princess control her gift when all the advanced races had failed? The royal scientists requested permission to study the event. They wanted to understand the mechanism of what had occurred. Queen Jiwoo allowed them to interview both Min-ho and Hai-na. The scientists asked many detailed questions about what they felt, what they thought, and what changed during the trial. Min-ho explained it simply. "I did not try to fight her power," he said. "I accepted it. I trusted that she had control, even when it felt overwhelming. I showed her that I was not afraid, and through that, she understood that her power did not have to be a weapon. It could be something natural and beautiful." One of the lead scientists, a being named Dr. Su-jin, who came from the same Valorian race as the princess, began to think deeply about this explanation. She had spent 30 years studying psychic powers and the ways they affected the mind. She had published many papers and given many lectures, but she had never truly understood the emotional and psychological side of the power. She had focused only on the physical and technical aspects. "I think," Dr. Su-jin said slowly, "that we have been approaching this wrong. For centuries, we have taught people with wild psychic powers that they must learn to control their gifts through discipline and force. We have told them to push down their emotions, to suppress their power, to keep it locked away inside themselves. But what we have learned from this human is something completely different. The princess's power became easier to control when she felt accepted, not rejected. When someone showed her that they did not fear her gift, her fear of it decreased, and she gained natural control. This was a revolutionary idea in Valorian medicine and psychology. A team of researchers began to study this concept more deeply. They looked at all the cases of Valorians with wild psychic powers. They found that the ones who had the most trouble controlling their abilities were the ones who had been told repeatedly that their gift was dangerous and wrong. The ones who had family and friends who accepted their power struggled less. Over the next few months, Dr. Su-jin and her team developed a new treatment method for Valorians with uncontrolled psychic powers. Instead of teaching them to suppress and resist their gifts, they taught them techniques based on acceptance and understanding. They helped patients process their emotions in healthy ways. They created support groups where people with similar powers could meet and share their experiences. Most importantly, they emphasized the importance of having people in their lives who accepted them completely. The results were incredible. Hundreds of Valorians who had been suffering with wild, painful, uncontrolled psychic powers began to improve. Their power became less dangerous and easier to manage. Many of them experienced relief for the first time in their lives. And all of this happened because a human from Earth had shown them a different way, the way of acceptance and trust rather than force and resistance. News of this breakthrough spread across the galaxy. Other alien species that also had psychic powers began to ask the Valorian Kingdom to share their new treatment methods. The Valorian Kingdom became known not just as a powerful empire, but as a center of healing and understanding. Universities from across the galaxy sent their students to study with Dr. Su-Jin. Medical professionals from 100 different worlds came to learn about these new techniques, but something else was also happening. As the story of Min-Ho became more well-known, people began to ask questions about humanity. Who were these humans? What made them different? They were not the strongest beings in the galaxy. They did not have the most advanced technology. They did not have special powers or extraordinary physical abilities. So what was special about them? Scientists from many different worlds began to study human psychology and behavior. They were fascinated by something they had noticed. Humans had a unique ability to understand other beings who were different from them. Humans had a natural gift for empathy and compassion that went beyond what most other species possessed. Humans asked questions about other beings' experiences and genuinely cared about the answers. Humans did not judge others based on power or ability, but based on character and heart. A famous philosopher from the energy dimensions wrote a paper about this. She called it The Hidden Strength of Humanity. In the paper, she explained that while humans were physically weak compared to most species, they possessed a form of strength that was actually more powerful than any weapon or technology. It was the strength to see the best in others, to accept differences, and to connect with beings who were completely unlike themselves. The paper became required reading in universities across the galaxy. Young beings from all species began to ask their governments, why did we not know about this strength? Why did we not teach our children to value compassion and empathy the way humans naturally do? Slowly, a new respect for humanity began to grow throughout the galaxy. Meanwhile, in the palace, Min-Ho was unaware of the great changes happening in the larger world. He was focused entirely on his relationship with Princess Haina. They spent their days walking in the gardens, talking about their dreams, sharing stories about their different worlds. Min-Ho taught Haina about Earth, about the beautiful mountains and oceans, about human history and art, about the simple joys of human life like making food together or watching the sunset. Haina taught Min-Ho about the Valorian Kingdom, about its long history, about the great art and music of her people. The queen watched her daughter blossom. The sad, lonely princess, who had spent so many nights crying by her window, was now smiling, laughing, planning for a future. And the queen realized something profound. Her daughter did not need a prince or a warrior. She did not need someone strong or powerful or famous. She just needed someone kind, someone genuine, someone willing to see her completely and accept her as she was. Queen Ji-woo called Min-Ho to her private chambers one evening. When he arrived, she was standing by the window, looking out at the stars. "You have changed my daughter's life," she said. "You have changed my kingdom, and I think you may have changed the entire galaxy. I wish to ask you something, and I want you to answer with complete honesty. Do you love my daughter?" Min-Ho did not hesitate. "Yes," he said simply. "I love her more than I thought it was possible to love another being. She is kind and intelligent and brave. She has suffered much, but she has not become bitter. She is the most beautiful person I have ever met, not because of her appearance, but because of who she is in her heart." The queen smiled. It was a smile that held many years of hope and prayer finally answered. "Then let us prepare for a wedding," she said, "because my daughter also loves you. She told me so this morning, and I believe that their love will mean more to this kingdom and to this galaxy than we can possibly imagine.